Alrighty, so now we also have audio and we are live. So now let me actually go back to this issue that I actually have to click on. Alright, so any preferences for order? I think they're all 4, 2, 2 basically, right? We can probably
future one and then
yeah, I wasn't going to say, I could probably, I don't know how much.
No, we didn't.
Alright, any preferences then? Otherwise,
I would start with the easy ones. We have a few of them, so it's something with long discussion. Exactly.
Easy ones, okay.
Yeah, we have the CMS.
Runtime feature has JIT. Morgan said was supposed to be easy. It's sort of happening.
I mean, the tools sound easy. I mean, they all sound pretty easy to me, like the first 5, honestly.
start clicking on them.
I just like open them now.
You could go from the bottom, actually, from the oldest.
No. Let's do the sexy stuff
They're
first.
all just for a reason.
I wish that was the case.
I love it. Enumerate chunks which allow efficient scanning of a StringBuilder.
So there's a whole bunch of context in the discussion about why he's not implementing enough spans, why he's not implementing Enumerator, etc. There's actually a comment in the code explaining why he's using it.
Well, I don't know, Christopher, have you spent time on that?
Even
No,
looks like
but it makes me a bit nervous because it leaves the fact that we have chunks inside.
I mentioned that, but the general feeling seems to be that was fine, this is advanced, and I guess they couldn't think of a scenario where changing the chunking would break before. Maybe Steven, you have an opinion?
I mean, worst case would be you stop chunking, and then this only ever yields one element.
Or you change the chunks of one and they didn't anticipate that or something, or
Or you change to what?
very small, like chunks of one. I don't know.
Oh God, that would be terrible.
Well,
So what is the main reason, like why would you want to enumerate the chunks? Why do we expose it? No comment.
I mean, to be able to do something with the data. So if you want to send this, if you want to copy the data from the StringBuilder to a text writer, or you want to search it in a particular way for some content, we don't expose any way to get at the underlying data other than toString.
So there was discussion about making it implement text writer. Do I remember that right?
Well, you couldn't implement text writer, and there already is a string writer which just wraps the StringBuilder basically. You could choose to just implement methods like copy to text writer or copy to async text writer and all the various versions of that, or you expose this underlying thing as a primitive, and then either we could also expose those, but if we don't, anyone could implement them on their own.
I mean, this is probably a stupid question, but if I wanted to wrap a StringBuilder in a stream, to refile it that way, I can't do that efficiently, right? Even with this.
Well, there's a mismatch. I mean, specifically with stream is bytes, StringBuilder is chars.
Right.
So but even if you got past that, if you wanted to wrap a StringBuilder in a text reader, for example, there's no efficient way to do that today. The only way we have to get at the data in a StringBuilder today is the indexer and toString. But toString allocates a big string, and an indexer is not efficient.
I mean, I honestly say, like, I'm not concerned with us leaking the fact that we are chunks, because that seems like almost the logical implementation anyway. Like, it seems like, I mean, because it's similar to list of T, where you cannot really hide the fact that it's a growing array under the covers, right? Like, it's kind of the core implementation of that thing, right?
It's a little bit like reading from a screen, right? You don't know how much.
Yeah, but StringBuilder doesn't try to be a super generic abstraction, right? StringBuilder tries to be a very cheap way to produce a string.
No, I'm saying when you're reading from a screen, you may get chunks of data.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, list of keys does not use the factor because of.
It does,
So,
because
no,
It could be. It could be linked list underneath.
Yeah.
Without.
well, but it basically has a capacity, right? The underlying. I mean, it's trying to be a very cheap building block. It doesn't try to be generic abstraction. I mean, list of T is not an abstraction, neither is StringBuilder.
I mean, don't get me wrong. After we discuss with some of the scenarios, I buy that we need an API like this.
Okay, so then, any concern with that
This is
particular?
just- I mean, this is one way to design it, and I think it's fine.
What was the reasoning for not implementing IAM removal?
I think it's a fuzzy reason. It's, you could go either way. The argument is this is a niche scenario, and making it implement IEnumerable arguably services it more than you want. But that's fuzzy.
There's no performance or other reasons, right? Is there?
I guess there's. I don't think so. I mean.
I think the main reason would be that, like, it's an advanced API, and it would be probably a bit surprising to unexpected users to find out that for each over StringBuilder gives you some read-only memory of char.
Well, no, it's not over StringBuilder. You're going to get a char.
So let's phrase it this way: you could make it implement IEnumerable. If you do though, and you don't add these public APIs, you're going to be allocating every time you call it. So. Because you're going to have to allocate the enumerator. So if you want to be, regardless of whether you implement IEnumerable or not, if you want to make it allocation free, you have to have a struct-based enumerator, which means you need these public APIs.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, the only argument not implementing IEnumerable is that you make it harder for people to accidentally go through the allocation route, right? By calling a link method by accident or something.
If I explicitly implement IEnumerable, for each will still work, right?
If you what? If you.
If I explicitly implement IEnumerable, that doesn't hide it from for each.
Correct, but you will allocate in order to use it.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't mean that they cannot for each. It's just something that implements, IEnumerable of some read-only memory of char on the very kind of forward.
Yeah, I was just. We have this pattern in other places where we have these custom struct enumerators, and I think they implement IEnumerator. So I was just using one.
This one's a little bit interesting or new. I think we talked about another related issue last time, and that this is one of the first times, I think, where we've introduced a struct enumerable. That's new, but it's sort of necessary here.
And there is
if you don't, yeah.
Why is it necessary? Because we already have enumerator on StringBuilder?
Exactly. Well,
yeah, I believe it's correct.
Actually, no. I guess you could. We don't, do we? I guess we don't.
Not to my knowledge, I hope we don't, because it'd be terrible. So
yeah, assuming we don't, then I guess you could just make it a public get enumerator. It might be a little strange that enumerator returns chunks rather than chars.
Well,
but
another issue with it is if we invented an even better SpinBuilder that allows you to go over chars, which is what people would expect, you would have already implemented.
Yeah, I think this is the main reason. Like, you would turn the get enumerator method for something that is kind of advanced.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the question is, why do we not also say these structs conform to their interfaces given that they look like before each is hitting them off of the pattern, but is there value in
right. There's probably nothing that prevents us from having the structs in interfaces as well compared to.
Yeah.
So another thing,
That means you see it's a link and you get that.
You could, but I would.
It wouldn't make any sense in this case.
I think you probably defeat the purpose at that point.
Well, I'm not sure it defeats the purpose. You go from not allocating to allocating, but there's a spectrum to how much you allocate. It's the difference between allocating the enumerator or the enumerable and the enumerator versus allocating the entire string.
Well,
No, but you don't have to, right? I mean, like, if I just want to enumerate the StringBuilder today, I can just write a for loop with length and the indexer. But people don't do that because that's the more efficient way of doing it. So why would you call the link method on the more efficient way?
It's actually terribly inefficient.
It's an n squared. It's literally, well, I mean, it's the random access to the index is n squared.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's terrible.
So that's not even like slightly worse. That's like orders of magnitude worse.
I fixed the bug in MS Build just a month ago because it's still like that. And And then, in fact, we added an API to get, to efficiently get to compare string builders without them getting them.
And there's no way for us to fix that at all?
There is, I think, a way to fix it. The general feeling, I think, from Jan was, why make string builder even more complex for something people shouldn't do?
Yeah, but that's not, I would argue that's not obvious from looking at StringBuilder API.
One suggestion that
Wow.
Andy had for fixing it was to basically store the last position of the index, so we can store what chunk it is, so at least we make uniform, steady index.
The for loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, let's keep finding what chunk.
Holy shit.
We could.
Wow.
It does make certain things. Well, yeah, we could.
So I could imagine.
Sorry.
I could, if there was a future API, kind of a pod API that took an iron resolve and then we use any char,
Right.
you couldn't pass this to it unless we actually implemented niche method.
But that would almost dictate that StringBuilder, maybe StringBuilder should be at least for eachable so that the normal enumeration does not suck big time as it does today when you write a for loop.
If we make enumeration over char as fast, then that would be
I mean, you could have a struct-based enumerator that does exactly what Eddie suggested for the for loop hack, right? You could just, I mean, you know the last chunk, so you don't, it's not an ON squared lookup anymore, right?
Right, but if
Christoph, how does this? I forget, where do we land, and how does this relate to the whole read-only sequence thing? Like, how does this relate to a read-only sequence of char?
I mean, we could actually just expose read-only sequence of char from StringBuilder, but I don't think it's worth it. I read-only sequence is a bit, more heavyweight. I mean, you have to create a linked list, which I guess we could just store the linked list inside StringBuilder, basically conforming to the read-only sequence. I just don't think it's worth it.
Okay.
One thing that I would do to make it less, so one thing that worries me about all these enumerators is the cost of the metadata. It's such a simple thing, and then we have to invent like so many new types just so you can pour each over read-only memory. Could we at least collapse the two structs? Can the chunk enumerable and chunk enumerator be one type?
You mean have a single? I'm having a little trouble hearing. I think the mic's in a bad place, but I think you mean have a single struct that has all three of those methods on it,
Yeah.
and have get enumerator just return this.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we do that somewhere else? I've seen that trick somewhere.
Some people have used that trick. Like I do that when I'm writing sample code with a wait and a custom awaiter. Like I'll have get awaiter return something, and it's basically get awaiter returns this. But I don't know that we've done that as any part of any public APIs. It's possible we have. We do it as an implementation detail inside of the implementation for enumerators, like with link.
That's right.
When you call get enumerator, we return, assuming no one else is using it, we return this, but that doesn't show up as part of the public APIs, it's just an implementation detail.
I mean, normally my concern would be that you have no mixed state in the same thing, but given that these are structs and you only have to call a method to get them to begin with, like, collapsing them doesn't seem like a bad idea at all, actually.
And we call it chunk enumerable editor.
I still don't know why we can't just go, eliminate the chunk enumerable completely and just say get enumerable chunks.
Well, that's the thing I discussed with Jared the other day, and he said, that, yeah, he's also in favor of just fixing the compiler sweeping for each enumerator. Because as soon as you have that, like the...
You need the enumerable for each to work?
Yes. You cannot enumerate the enumerator.
Well, let's just keep the name chunk enumerator and add method get enumerator, and you have it.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
The feature.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can already do that today. Like, there's no feature for that necessary.
And there's no pushback on read-only memory versus read-only span that allows you to do a wait kind of thing.
I think the only downside, there are only two downsides that I can think of to read-only memory versus read-only span. One is it's a slightly bigger thing, so you're handing out a little bit, a larger thing each time, passing around a little more data. And two is you then have to access the span to get at the data. Other than those two. But in exchange for that, you can use it in many more places. Like if you wanted to implement a copy to async from a StringBuilder to a text writer, you can do that with read-only memory. You can't do that with read-only span.
one thing we could do is there's a convenient for each API gives you read-only memory, and then have a method on this struct called ConcurrentSpan that gives you span. If you really worry about the small cost, you just don't use for each manually while loop.
So why is it reading the give out the memory? Because we only have one, or?
No, we could give you a span, but then you kind of have to, what Steve was saying is stuck. Once you get the span, you kind of...
Oh, you can no longer be closer.
The universe closes down a lot.
Yeah.
So, Christoph, could you? So, is there a mic or something that's?
Yeah, I probably would. I will try to move closer to the mic.
on this thing? Like there's no other. This one doesn't have an extra one.
What I was saying is...
Thanks, Christoph.
Yeah, what I was saying is we could basically add a new method to chunk enumerator called ConcurrentSpan and just return span.
Current.span.
So like, you know, normally you for each, and if you worry about the performance of getting span out of memory, you switch to a while loop, and then you access ConcurrentSpan.
Oh, I see. And so rather than doing current.span, we would just have it construct the span the same way current will construct the memory.
Correct. Yeah.
Presumably they're both just doing a conversion off the array.
Yeah, but the span conversion is much. I mean, the big benefit of it sounds like it's a very similar set of calls, but span is so optimizing the JIT that the cost of those very simple operations tends to be.
Right. I'm saying like it's not like we wouldn't need current span wouldn't call current.span. It would be the direct conversion from the underlying data.
I mean, if we measured it to actually be measurable, that seems like a pretty reasonable solution to me, Christoph.
Yeah, the question is, would we add it now before knowing we need it, or do we wait until we need it?
Probably want to wait until we need it, but we could also ask Vance to go and measure it. Like, he may not have considered it, and we could suggest it and see what he thinks. And we could measure it and see if there's a real benefit to it. I mean, on the one hand, I could absolutely imagine there being a huge difference if you were doing this for every character. But if you're doing it for every character, you're doing something wrong. So it's a question of where in the middle this falls.
How large are the chunks?
So by default, StringBuilder starts with a 16 character chunk, and it doubles from there. So you're not going to have that many generally. You might have if you had a 1,000 character string, you're going to have 10 or whatever, or maybe whatever the math works out to. But you can. There are certain constructs where basically you could end up with many and smaller chunks.
Is there any scenario where you want to write to them?
Sorry, say that again, Emil?
Is there any scenario where you want to write to the actual chunks? Because I know you can't, right? You could be better with only view with that chunk.
It would be. I mean, I guess you could come up with one, but I'm not sure. Maybe you could come up with one.
I mean, I'm thinking like things like toUpper, for example, right? Or like where you can potentially just do character by character.
Are you asking like why are you trying read-only memory rather than memory?
I mean, we can grow, right? I mean, like if you basically get the structure that we have for you, but
it's a good point. After all, StringBuilder is a mutable string.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you wanted to do like your own custom replace operation, that didn't change the size of anything, but you wanted to do your own thing that public methods on StringBuilder didn't support, I guess you could do that. Where it would fall down is the moment you wanted to change the length. You wanted to replace one character with two or something. Then you wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether we regret the read-only choice. But
the other downside to memory is, and we probably already hit this in other places where we talked about adding like ref returning methods. Is you're handing out the internals of this guy's implementation. The moment like that, you could also expose. The other option would be to expose two properties, one called chunks and one called chunk count, and then you can enumerate the chunks just by saying, give me the next one, give me the next one. That said, I think either the sequence position or that suffer I forget, what does sequence position allow you to construct it from?
Sequence position inside has an int and an object. So
And you
basically,
can,
if you use it in
give
a
it any
context,
object and you can give it any object and access that object.
no, so if you basically store an int, if you have a data structure that is index based, then you just store an int inside the sequence position. If you have a data structure that is link based, you store in the object view the next, the next node.
So part of the problem is, and I don't know why this is the case, maybe we should go look at this again, but StringBuilder maintains a reverse linked list of, a reverse singly linked list of the chunks. And that's part of why the indexer is so expensive. So StringBuilder, it has basically a reference to the last chunk. And then that chunk references the previous chunk because it's optimizing for the append case. So if all you have is the index, only have the link to a particular chunk, with the current implementation, you can't get to the next one. You can only get to the previous one.
Well, then how will this enumerator work?
So he does it. He has two paths. One path is he quickly counts how many there are, and if it's under some threshold, I think it's like 8 chunks, he basically does it recursively. And if it's more than that, he does an allocation for an array to store all the chunks and then enumerates that array.
Wow. That seems...
Maybe we should just make it a doubly linked list.
Well, that was my question, is I don't know why it's not.
Well, it just increases every chunk by a pointer size. The chunk
But if you don't want every size 4 chunks.
The chunks are in the default size 16, and that can be much larger. But that may be
That's right.
doubly linked list would be nice, and would make indexing vastly faster.
Yeah.
And would make this implementation faster. Unrelated question. What does the compiler do when you try to for each over something that explicitly implements IEnumerable for 2 different types? You just fail, or it can't be failed. What do you want? Which enumerator do you want?
If one of them is public, or if one of them is implicitly, or if there's a public get enumerator, it calls that.
Right.
And if not, you had to cast it because there wasn't a thing to do.
Right. There's no way to even use explicit interface implementation to implement it for 2 different.
Well, because if
types,
you
like char and meter.
if you implement
you can.
if you implement IEnumerable of char,
Yeah.
then you also implement IEnumerable, so it will just call the IEnumerable one.
I'm thinking about where I've got 2 explicit implementations, no
You're saying you explicitly implement IEnumerable byte and you explicitly implement IEnumerable char.
Yeah, say, for
Then
example.
it will do IEnumerable.
No. If you cast to IEnumerable of byte, it will do the IEnumerable byte implementation. If you cast the type to IEnumerable of char,
if I
it
ever
will do
do one, then I
the
don't
char.
need to cast, so it'll errors and you need to cast it like that. So we could do that then. We could make SpringBuilder offer IEnumerable with another char explicitly and IEnumerable of char implicitly, and then the people who need the chunks cast.
I think that's almost worse because that is pretty much undiscoverable. I think at that point I would rather have a method like this one and just let the method return IEnumerable of
Also,
read only number of
the
char.
negative is the moment you cast to IEnumerable of something, then your enumerator is IEnumerator of something.
Yeah, it has to
which
go through
means
interface.
It causes an allocation risk.
Yeah.
So, well,
I mean, if you want it to be, yeah, seems reasonable. All right, then let me just try to copy and paste this into Notepad. Let's try to.
30 minutes for our first user.
no,
I got the list. Easy.
Well, it was easy. It took just a long time.
It was random. I guess there's no way we could do the benefits of struct enumerators in a shareable manner because the moment they're shareable, that means we have to have some sort of call it, which we just allocate the class.
So the
you will need like put one of the struct enumerator and show it across many times.
Yeah.
Well, that's what sequence position does. Sequence position is a struct, and it allows you to enumerate an arbitrary data structure without having to choose any type.
It allows you
Without
to
allocation.
walk through all of the data. But that's different than enumerator,
Well, which is
the for each field.
well, yes, but the compiler could just understand the parent and do it for us. And it's actually not such a difficult loop. The loop you just write for, and the test to get new value and check whether you at the end is the second part of the for loop, and then you skip the last one and you're done.
Are you using a modifying test condition?
Like this. Let's say you have read only sequence of char as you do for equals as that. As that
Yep. I mean, it looks almost as readable as the STL. I don't know why people complain about that. Yeah.
That's basic. It's very similar.
Can we overload the plus plus operator? All right. All right. Is that capturing what we just said before we go on with the? Then this is the.
Yeah, I would just add a note, or we can do it after, about the other things. One was current span, and we could consider making this memory instead of read-only memory, or in the future adding a current read-writable, or whatever Christoph called it.
So why do we call the method enumerate chunks, not just the property chunks?
Yep, that works for me too.
A property?
Yeah.
Property seems.
That would.
Right?
It seems like you're going to get changing state.
Yeah.
Why?
I like it better as
It's
a method.
not changing state, it's giving you something that has state. That's fine.
Yeah, but you're creating an instance this time, eventually.
So what? It's same if for each list of t, the same thing, right? If you modify the list of t by enumerating, that will not fly.
Keeping it getting a property doesn't affect the thing you got.
Yeah.
So does that mean, Emo, does that mean you want move next to throw an exception, or concurrent throw an exception if it changed? Like you want it to track version?
No, I would say it's. I mean, it's the same as if you have a method, right? Like either it works or it doesn't, right? That's orthogonal. That's my point.
Yeah, it's fine for an object to modify something you got off it from a property.
Yeah.
It's just that getting the properties you can modify later.
But
Yes.
why would it modify this?
So it doesn't, right? So what? In property, they can modify the object when you actually modify something. Like access in property doesn't modify the object.
Why isn't every other enumerable just a property? Just enumerable bonds.
Which one? Get the enumerable?
Yeah.
Because it's a nice name versus what do we call it?
Get enumerable chunks.
I like to enumerate chunks
We
better.
could keep it as a method and just call it GetChunks. Right? Is that what?
The funny thing about enumerating chunks is its method.
Yeah, I wouldn't
isn't
call it
actually
enumerating
enumerating
because
chunks.
it's not enumerating.
It's not doing anything.
I mean, how easy it would be to write sb.chunks.current. Like, what does that do? Or sb.chunks.move next if you don't go through the enumerator?
Default value.
Whatever the behavior is you're getting.
Default value. Empty read-only memory.
And move next does what?
Move next. Moves to the next with the first chunk.
I mean, what it will do is.
So,
if you
so we
call-
just say like we define get enumerator to be a no.
Well, it returns this.
Get enumerator is only there to help this language.
Alright. We're good with that then?
Why are we targeting get enumerators?
Wait, why would you ever call it? You
Because I want to manually enumerate just like you said.
You would, right? You just get you call GetChunks, you get this guy, and you just say one move.
Oh, okay.
Like, well, you would never call the method.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Should we open the?
Oh, sorry. This is, I hate GitHub.
Quote is cool.
Yeah, I've done it several.
What's happening now?
Everyone's done it, I think. At some point.
It takes time.
Oh, no, it's there.
Want to get this, please.
Yeah, that's I think what I wanted. No, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Oh god, GitHub is helping me in. Alright. Yay! Come on, 45 minutes, that's not bad.
Well, it's an important type.
It's an important type, exactly. Exception.HResult said it should be made public.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. Why did we not make it public?
It's just protected for.
It was never meant to be exposed originally.
No, we
We
exposed HResult on exception during the winter tea time frame because we wanted to have a way to say right now we throw exception directly for cases that we don't have an exception type mapped.
Well,
And if we add it in the future, we can.
we removed a whole bunch of derived things from exception from the API service. So we needed, some people still needed a way to get that error code. So we exposed the getter.
Right.
We weren't trying to make it setter because settable was almost always through construction, through the constructor parameters and not through the property. We didn't want to introduce that.
And also often the message utilizes the interface, so you could get out of sync.
Yes.
But this seems fine. I mean, no one's going to do it without full knowledge of what they're doing, and it's not particularly hard.
Well, I mean, like if you make it settable, you can still like set the message if you really want to. Right?
Is message service a public setting?
I believe it does. Maybe I'm wrong.
Never in my entire life said message.
Neither did I.
It doesn't have setter. I'm pretty sure.
The exception is just designed to be constructed.
You're correct. It's only
And all of
It's overridable.
Is anything settable actually in exception? I don't think it is.
Like, that's
Right?
not something that
Sources, okay.
Whereas each result can be used in code, it seems reasonable to be able to set it in the original.
Help link is. So in my case, yeah, HResult could be made settable. What happens though if we change protected to public? Does that break?
Didn't
Both?
break anyone, but I'm still not sure we want to expose it publicly.
Well, it's a field or it's a property?
The property.
If it's a property with virtual, then yes, it will break.
It's not virtual.
Why would it break?
Because when you override, you say
They have to
override protected full, and then the compiler will say,
It's a source
well,
code
it's not
exception.
protected. Don't change visibility.
Yeah.
When you override.
But I
Override
mean-
should have replaced the visibility modifier.
But yeah, I think the since it's not virtual, it's only from source code, so it should be fine.
Do we think it's still a reasonable scenario to be able to just randomly change the H results here? Like, I think Dan had a good point about it usually is tied to the message.
Sure, but like you can already set the help link or the what was the other one, the target side, right? The idea is that, what was it source? No, source. Source and HResult. Source and help link are basically advanced things that you may want to set, and you can still get out of sync. And in the same way, you can argue the HResult is an advanced thing that you may want to set, right?
Yeah. It doesn't seem like something that we're enabling people to get in the really bad maps.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, if you modify exceptions after you caught them, you're just an idiot. Like at that point, like I have no sympathy.
you've got a reason.
Well, after you caught it, no. I mean, before you throw it, sure, but yeah, it's called being an asshole.
But you want to see what the actual H result is if the option is changed.
Right.
This came out of
You would have the
wrong.
solution by just starting an exception,
Then they're losing the whole stuff.
Against some various usages. So if someone, for example, has an exception and their toString factors in HResult, and they cache the toString such that it's subsequent calls just return the cache version, making this settable doesn't provide any way to invalidate cache data. Do we care?
Do we cache it inside exceptions or externally somebody caching it?
The message. Yeah.
I'm saying like, so what if someone caches it in the exception? I haven't yet found any cases where we do that,
So
but it's theoretically possible.
you make the exception be the hexadecimal version of the HResult colon and then a call to get message or format message. Like now you change the HResult and turns out the message still says the old HResult.
Well, how, what do we do for help link and source? Isn't that also exposed by toString?
I don't think so. I mean, but who knows what someone's toString does?
Yeah, I think honestly though, in practice, people will not do it after they called it. I think in practice you do it right before you throw. So I don't think people actually care. I mean, can you write code that is affected by this? Yes.
Does it continue throwing the same exception object that's modified?
That's actually a good question.
I don't think it does.
Well, you've always been able to set data on it.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
But I don't, does throw semicolon modify the existing exception? Does it serialize and reserialize?
No, it will continue with the current object. It will not.
It uses the same object, but it updates the stack trace and the lots of
Well, the stack trace won't be fixed, right? So semicolon should no longer modify even in the same method, right?
Wait, sorry, what was that email?
If you say throw semicolon, I mean the name is, well, the parameter seems a bit short. You should make it longer, I think.
Just learn from us.
Minimum
What? So while the name of this parameter is terrible, I can tell you what it's doing.
So it starts with that.
So SpinWait is used in a bunch of places, both in the framework and external, as a way of doing kind of back off, where you try something and someone else concurrently has conflicted with you, and so you want to back off a little bit before trying again. There are, and usually with these back off schemes, you do, you try again very quickly, you try again very quickly, and then after a few times of trying again quickly, you say, you know what, this trying again quickly thing isn't working, I'm going to back off a little more. And then you try again, and you back off a little more. And so what SpinWait does, it has various kind of thresholds for when you back off into what. First, it can try, just doing a thread.SpinWait, which just does some computation. Then it could try doing a thread.yield to allow other threads on the same physical core to be swapped in. Then it could do thread.sleep0, and so on. Its last step is thread.sleep1, which in theory says sleep for a millisecond. In practice, and even that is a long time. In practice, Windows, that ends up probably sleeping for 10 or 15 milliseconds because of the quantum.
Yeah.
And that's an insanely long time. And we recently hit some issues where, because of some changes that Count made that changed spinning heuristics, in certain cases we ended up hitting that SpinWait thread.sleep1 more frequently, which ends up, it's a cliff that you fall off of. And so internally we have these hard-coded thresholds for how many times we end up spinning before we hit that next cliff. And this is controlling one of those cliffs, basically, that last cliff. It's saying how many times, what's the threshold before we get here?
It seems reasonable to me. I mean, it seems like minimum sleep threshold might be good enough of a name, and then you can just document what that actually means.
But there are two thresholds. One is for sleep 0.
Like, are all the
Sure.
things have reasonable step sizes, or any, can one parameter describe all of the step things, or if we're exposing this level of detail, do we need to expose all of the different things?
Did we just lose Steven?
Steven, are you there?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
Yep.
If you bring up the IM window emo, I pasted a link so you can see the source for what this is doing, and you can see where the various thresholds are.
Yeah, first I have to join the meeting because it's only popping up on the conference monitor, which is not really helping.
Sorry, I can just email IM you directly.
No, I can just join the thing and then I
So
think
one
I
idea
should
to
see
simplify the name, isn't minimum
There you
and
go.
threshold kind of synonyms?
Oh God, where is it?
We could just call it SpinOnce.Threshold. And also not like this long name explains what this thing does.
Sleep on threshold is apparently what the info calls it. So.
Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. Minimum, so a sleep 1 threshold then.
Yeah, so I mean the question is, is this the only thing that we need to tune, or do we also need to be able to tune the yield threshold and et cetera? If we don't think we'll ever tune those, this is fine, but if we think we might start to tune those, then now we need to decide what order we think that all the integer parameters should go in.
That's probably a good question for count. If he thinks there's any reason we need to expose those, and if so, come up with a proposal for what that looks like.
Once we start taking multiple inputs from, are these absolute offsets, or these relative to the previous offset, are these, does the parameter order go from the last thing we'll get to the first thing we'll get to, or yay for a big bunch of hits.
So sleep 0, it doesn't hit the quantum issue?
No, sleep 0, I forget what all the differences are. Sleep 0, I believe, is it just checks to see if there are other runnable threads on the same ideal processor. Something the priority gets factored in, and if there's something else, it'll kind of force switch to one of those. But if nothing else is runnable, this thread just keeps running.
I see. So basically,
10 to 15 milliseconds.
You go to the ignore priority. You go to the end of the runnable threads list instead of you go into the we'll hit you in 15 milliseconds to find out whether or not any of you should be promoted to runnable.
Exactly.
So you just go behind everybody else who's already hit their one time or their yield list.
now I know never to sleep 1. I would sleep 0 for an hour. Some network problems. Yes, exactly like this.
Yeah, it's not great.
I don't know.
Been seeing a lot of unicorn JSON when you get it.
Oh man, this sounds complicated.
Yeah.
Should we?
Oh, it's
Easy
a
one?
yeah.
Yep, it's an easy one.
It's crypto. Who cares? Approve.
But he wants to have the method that just throws no. He wants to have the method that throws no. I don't think it's a good idea.
Also, your style is not very
We're going to
consistent.
take that as room so you can book this one for the second hour.
I did not book it for the second hour. Oh, another room for the second hour? That's possible. I think today was a different. Yeah, 2419 is the other one. 3419. So it's not too bad. Tatooine. All right.
Alright, I'm gonna disappear for a few minutes, I'll be back.
All right. Oh, I actually had something for drinks. I was thirsty. That is awful. All right, let me grab this. Yeah. Sorry, what? Yep, I tried to get it. I think I went to the bathroom. Alright, so now the question is whether streaming is actually. I think I did not stop the stream, so that's good, I guess. Do I get the. Where's the USB cable here? Okay, that's the projector one, and that's. Alright, take the mic. Take this one. Oh, actually, that's a good point. I will hate myself for that.
You want to do first again? Just for the fun.
Right, the cable's here. It's like, what could possibly go wrong? Alright. And apparently, like, my laptop is not charging. What's going on here? The charge? No, it's the cable. No. Anything not connected here?
The one past.
Alright, now let's try this. So we now have roundtable audio, which is nice.
And we have like one CMS that seems simple as well.
Oh yeah, that's also.
You should not build it.
Yeah.
Let's just that for that.
Christoph W. has them written. We're just waiting on it to get it.
Anyway, I'll beg you for tomorrow. More issues.
Oh my god, this worked. Alright.
For example.
So now let me. Actually, the screen is also up. Just that this one.
Cool.
That should be better. Alright, so actually, is the mic better? Let me quickly check. What is that round table? It is. Try that. And let me try. Yep, I think it is. Alright.
Comfortable?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I need to start for business. What is happening?
Did you?
Oh, it's because I'm clicking on the thing and it does not work. Alright, so share your desktop. Share. Oh, actually, I'm on the wrong one. No, actually, that was the wrong one. Alright, so we're back in business. Alright, so
Alright, so EnvelopedCms is a class whose purpose is the sender of data has a certificate with a public key identifying the person they want to send data to. They build up the data, they encrypt it for that entity, and then they send it. The receiver gets it and calls decrypt.
it's delayed.
What the current decrypt methods do is they search through various Windows certificate stores to find the certificate that matches the description, because all that gets written down is an identifier representing your certificate, not the actual certificate. So we'll search through, we'll find one. If we find one that's a match, we'll use the private key handle that we can get from the certificate, and then we'll decrypt it. This doesn't work for places that we have private key handles that we can't associate, such as when they're from Key Vault. So the solution, and then the other one, which was a Stack Overflow question someone had, is if I'm in the middle of a certificate rollover, how do I know which certificate they use when encrypting it for me? And there was just no way that you could accomplish that. So on the portion of signed CMS and EnvelopedCms, which identifies what certificate was used somewhere, which is subject identifier, adding an is match, or you give it the certificate that you want to know, is this the certificate that you represent? And then it will tell you yes or no. And then, so now being able to loop over the recipient infos, which is an existing thing that you can do, when you find this recipient whose subject identifier says it matches this certificate, then now you could either pass in the private key handle yourself off of the certificate, or if you get it externally because you know it's in key vault, you can call the new decrypt method. And then this one won't search the store at all because you've told it this is the key that you will use to decrypt.
So why is the method called isMatch and not something like matches certificate?
Whatever.
Meaning you didn't think about
not really.
alternatives, you kind of like just went quickly.
I didn't look for what we had for consistency. I figured that this room would know what we had for consistency. So
it's not consistency. It's just I can imagine that like you have subject identifier is match for what?
Right. So match a certificate's fine.
Subject identifier right now has 0 methods, right? So like this thing is plain.
So what does it have?
2 properties, one of which is object. An enum telling you what the object property is. So match a certificate seems fun.
I just asked. So I have no idea how these things will be used in practice, but I gave you my argument. If it makes sense, then let's change it. Otherwise,
I'm fine with changing it. It was isMatch was a top of my head method name that I gave for Christoph W to prototype if things would work.
So is that it?
Fine with me.
Mention
Christoph.
that you change your name so that he notices.
All right, do we want to get the other CMS issue?
Yep. I have the issue.
Ooh, things worked faster.
Oh, well, it's different room, so. Can we do 25,449?
25,449.
Oh, Lord.
So for assigned CMS, there's a thing that you can do when signing, which is you can have some signed attributes on your signer and you can have unsigned attributes on your signer. The purpose of unsigned attributes in the spec is they can be added after the fact. But our API design only allows you to have all of the attributes that you don't care about signing during signing time. This complicated some scenarios for NuGet because as part of NuGet package signing, which uses assigned CMS, they need to add attributes after the fact. So they got to use some knowledge about when some signature values don't change, etc., and they essentially just reconstructed the whole object and copied the signature from a previous value.
The only question is, on the existing signer info type, there is 2 properties called authenticated attributes and unauthenticated attributes, and they're both of type ArrayList. So the way you would basically add those, you would say unauthenticated attributes.add.
Those are detached copies from the document. By the time you read them, it no longer knows what document it came from. Making it know what document it came from would be a functional change. Like anybody who was already mutating them now would be mutating a live document when they never had been before.
I guess all I'm trying to say is like should it be unsigned attributes.add rather than add unsigned attribute?
Well, again, that's the unsigned attributes returns a copy that then doesn't know what document it came from. It is, you can modify it because it returned you a collection, but that does not modify your document.
You said document, what do you mean by document? The signer info type?
The signed CMS that the signer info came
I'm
from.
talking about the top one.
Yeah.
I'm talking about signer info.
Signer infos can only be constructed by signed CMS. So you have a CMS document, you loaded it into the signed CMS class to ask it what's going on. You loop over the signer infos. If you read the collection property off of it, you can modify that to your heart's content. And if you call encode to go write the bytes out again, it doesn't understand that you modified.
So we already have a property called unsigned attributes.
Apparently we called them unauthenticated attributes, but the spec calls them unsigned. So
we already have a property.
If the property
you
is
modify the property,
no,
the collection.
You're in the mono one.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that's just because it happens to be the first entry into this that means
Because I'm pretty sure ours is called signed and unsigned.
And if you modify the collection, it has a different meaning than
the wrong type.
No, that's kind of weird, but
If you modify the collection, so the collection has been mutable since .NET Framework 2.0, but the collection has never known what object it came from. So if you grab the collection, you remove things, you add things, you replace things, and then you call encode on the signed CMS object itself, it's not aware you mutated anything.
Should we add signer info too? Since it uses array list in the signature and has wacky behavior, where the methods on collection have different meaning than methods.
We should add it too. So we have that. That's the one you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So we don't have array list. We have we have a very complicated collections type.
And so basically what you're saying is that like add unsigned attributes is different from unsigned attributes.add?
Yes.
Wow, that's...
Which is the same as our existing add counter signer.
That's why I said should we add signer info too?
Yeah. So remove counter signature and counter signers.remove already have that problem as of .NET Framework 2.0.
And you think having such complicated semantics makes it easy to write secure code?
No.
Because we've been beaten up to submission when we designed owned memory, that like complicated semantics make it easy to write, have security issues.
Well, you tried this new.
I see. So
yes,
here,
this is
everybody knows that there is this collection here that is detached, so all mutations to it.
Well, whether or not they know it,
don't do it.
If we made it all of a sudden be attached and made it have live modification semantics, that would be a break. That would be a potentially breaking change to people. Of all of a sudden,
on top of the difference between desktop and core, right?
So I don't want to change the behavior of the existing code, which means we need a new method. So for countersigners, you can add them with compute countersigner and remove countersigner, and so then this is add unsigned attribute, remove unsigned attribute to mirror that.
So when I started this review and I said it's crypto, who cares, just to prove it, that's what I meant. Because like every time we look into it and we try to improve it, it's like, it's already shit. But let's make it consistent to what we already have, so it's at least the same
You
thing.
remove method adds and your add method removes. Well, what can we do?
Didn't you fix, what was it?
Yeah, it was...
it was reading on write and writing on reading, and like, great, like...
Some buffer APIs.
So that's the top one. And then the bottom one, or the other half of the issue is on the signed CMS class. It can have a collection of certificates that you're supposed to be able to use when walking through all the signers. Again, when signing, you can put a collection of certificates of go merge this in with the set. And you can also get that collection back and you can modify it, but it doesn't have any effect if you modify it. So then add certificate and remove certificate to modify the one on the document instead of modify the collection.
Yeah, that is, well, I mean, I guess
approved.
Can we add like a bot to GitHub? If it's in system security cryptography, we approve automatic.
You changed the name of one of my methods. See, this meeting provided value.
Oh, that was the other one, right?
Precedence.
Yeah.
Alright.
Are you ready for next season ones?
What can I say? Alright, is this one easy?
Yes.
API is easy, the feature not so much.
Has chips.
Have we really settled on the pattern for this runtime feature to class yet? How
We
to
do.
it?
I mean, it should not be a bool. I can tell you that.
You want it to be a Trullian? Nullable bool. Yeah.
No. I mean, like.
Pattern is just whether or not it's defined or not is the bool. Because we don't actually need to. The compiler should not be actually executing the code to figure it out.
Exactly.
So they're checking for existence.
So it can be void.
No, it's actually this. Like, it's the presence of the field. And the idea is that, like, you would pass it into is supported if you want to do it at runtime. So the idea was that, like, the idea of this type is that it's statically discoverable whether features are available based on the targeting rank. So the field is there, the feature is there. If you want to compile against, let's say, an older version of an standard where the field is missing, you would call is supported passing the value of set string.
Yes. Well, then that's not what Morgan wants.
I was going to say the has JIT thing is not going to be in that boat.
So why not?
Because what he wants the feature for is am I in AOT or not? Or something like, is a jitter going to run, and therefore I can use dynamic, or not, and therefore I can't.
Well, unless we. Well,
why wouldn't that be a static feature of the targeting of the framework you're targeting?
Because you
either have it or you don't have it.
Because it depends on the runtime, not on the framework. Net standard.
Because the IL that was emitted by CSC is the same, and then AOT would change the runtime environment you're in, or you could be, I would say pure interpreted, but that would probably say true.
Pure runtime.
Yeah, this is actually a runtime question. Like our am I running on a Mac?
Which makes sense in runtime features type, but the other ones maybe don't.
Because this is where Jan Kodas told him to put it. Which is why I see a Boolean property of a runtime feature, and Jan Kodas told him to put it there, so it sounded easy.
So it's
naming is hard. We name this stuff runtime.
It's a dynamic capability.
We have that runtime environment class, but it's the closest thing.
Yeah, so there's what he wants. Is an actual, I need to know if my runtime is capable of
JITting.
Using a dynamic method.
I mean, the scenario is sound, I would say.
Should it be called, can I use dynamic method?
Presumably there's more than one thing tied into whether or not there's a JIT.
I mean, I don't really call it JIT, but like it's basically, has runtime codegen, but yeah. Which is basically, dynamic method is just one sort of runtime codegen.
Yeah. Well, there are many different kinds of runtime codegens.
And they can all be independently turned off and on?
Some, for example, refemit is very different from JITting.
Do we have a JIT environment that doesn't have refemit?
I think so.
Okay.
I think our doesn't UWT allows you to JIT in some cases, but not
when you're doing native compile.
But not refemit or something like that.
There's no refemit.
They don't have a runtime method
exposed.
No, I mean, it's a valid point. If we think that we would have a case where dynamic can work, but refemit can't, and
you have interpreters in some cases where we do expression evaluation.
Then maybe the has JIT isn't actually the interesting question, and maybe in addition to figuring out if that's the right place to put it, we need to be a bit more expressive with what we're asking for here. Because it would be bad to get a bunch of things using the same value here and then find out later that we need to bifurcate them.
It's just later on maybe we add more precise. We later on can add more precise checks. This one is just matter of factly. Do you have a JIT or not?
That's fair. And then I guess if something was like, well, what I really cared is does dynamic work, and we have an environment that has a JIT that doesn't care about dynamic, then go fix this broken check. So I guess we'd find out.
I would say there's two kinds of, one option that we have is not putting in a runtime feature, and instead having it literally on things like dynamic method or assembly builder and say, is dynamic method.All is supported? And then that's the way you would do that. Because I think that's more in line with capability checks that we have, like registry.is supported or whatever. And I think that would be a better model, because runtime features is really designed to be static lookup for the compiler.
Yep.
That was the design of the type. I mean, you could argue the name was unfortunate, but you always know.
In retrospect, maybe it should be called compiler feature support.
No, but it's not about compiler features. It's really about the capability that the runtime has, the compiler can rely on.
I'm actually curious how he's even making this code work at all.
Why?
Because rough emit is not really standard anymore. So he can't write it as a library. He's got to target one of the core platforms that has rough emit already exposed.
But there's no rough emit, right? Isn't dynamic method in?
No, it's in rough emit.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's in the rough emit.
Oh yeah, that doesn't mean anything. Dynamic method. It's not in standard, but it does live in systemReflection.emit.lightweight, which is different from system.reflection.emit.
Yeah, but it's in the same bucket of the packages.
Sure, it's in the same bucket, but like, could that not be available for NetStamming?
No, there's a whole issue that people are not very happy with me right now because I unlisted those packages because they were broken.
No, but the full reflection one, the problem was we couldn't build the package against that because we couldn't derive from type. But dynamic method doesn't have that problem. So that package we could actually build against .NET Standard, right?
No, we can't.
Not even dynamic method? Why not?
Because of the type info crap. The type info doesn't have an exposed constructor.
No, I get that, but why does it appear for dynamic method?
There's that implements that number of info.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I think I get it why it doesn't work for full reflection in it, but it should work for dynamic method as well. But
Yeah, well, we don't currently have that.
Okay.
It doesn't exist.
Okay, we currently don't have it. The question is whether we could have, and the answer might be yes or no.
Even if we did have it, we couldn't add a new API to it and make it standardized.
Well, not for full framework, that is true, but what about runtime feature? We have the same problem there, right? Didn't we ship runtime feature as well? For full framework, I think we did.
We added it, I believe.
Yeah, so like then that ship has sailed too. So no matter where we put it, we have to figure out how we work in that. So I don't know. I would prefer if you would put a dynamic method and I don't know, assembly builder or type builder or whatever. And then that's where you look it up. And then we figure out whether we can make that.
I mean, it would be good to have Morgan here. In general, I notice we are reviewing lots of issues where the owner is not here,
because
which makes it...
Well, sometimes it's okay. The previous meeting is supposed to be fast things where we decide we need the owner or we can approve it without. And Morgan had actually asked me if he needs to show up, and I said, if it's easy, we usually approve it, and if it's once it turns out that it looked easy but is hard, then you'll get summoned.
This is in the whole bucket of figuring out dynamic feature discovery. Like we have that whole other issue about that too, how to determine what framework I'm running on, what runtime I'm running on, those things.
We already have lots of APIs here. It seems like 1% of the framework surface area is for it.
and every time we ship one, we add another. And it's growing. Yeah.
It's more than 1%. I consider the whole reflection API service part of this.
Maybe we should have a dynamic API for it, so we don't have to add new APIs in the future.
That is, by definition, reflection API.
Just typing?
No, just like dynamic object. And then you can call whatever method you want on it. If the method works, the feature is supported. If it doesn't...
Yeah, we talked about that for we I think it was, we even have a patent on it.
Alright, this is what I wrote. Any concerns with that? Otherwise, it would just, we probably should just add this needs broader discussion.
Now that you said that, I remember that.
We know that.
Me and you.
Okay. Let's leave it at that.
All right. Ready for easy ones?
That was the one we just counted. Yeah. All right.
2.9. 243.
29243.
Is the compression all? Yeah, that's one.
Good.
Basically, we have decompression methods. We recently added broadly in there, and before people, hard coded like, hey, deflate or gzip. The option is actually to put there like none or negative of none. That's not very good on discovery, so we're thinking about adding the all. It's like hey, I don't care which decompression method it is. I just whatever you support, give me all of them.
Sorry, how would you call it?
I think it's at the top actually. You would just pass to the method .all.
Automatic decompression default. Well, you can't really say all there, right?
Would it be auto or something then?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Any or auto seems like, because you're not compressing with all of them, right? You're compressing with.
You're picking.
Any as a name is good as well.
Yeah. Well, I guess any would be. I think auto is probably better because auto, like, it improves some sort of policy that somebody has to come up with, right?
Yep. Either explicit list or any or none. And none is default.
And the other option is, can we just change the initialization of the property?
Change what?
So
the default
automatic decompression just picks one.
Well, we could change it to all, but it's a breaking change. Currently, people are used that the decompression doesn't work.
Yeah, but how would you rely on that? Because I mean, the idea is that automatic decompression just means that if the server supports it, you're opting into that automatically.
Yep.
I mean, like, you just make more scenarios work. Not
I believe actually we sent over to server like these are the decompression methods that we support.
Oh, sorry, it's
it's part of the record.
Actually, all makes sense because you're saying I support all of them.
Yep. Or you basically say like whatever I'm running on, whatever it supports, like allow all of those. I'm not picking.
Do we use this for anywhere else other than this automatic decompression?
I don't think so.
So one thing that is kind of, I understand why we are doing this, but all would mean all ones.
Including
Which
future
is
ones.
basically, it's more than all. It's all present and future.
Yeah, it's all that, whatever you're running on supports. It's basically you want to stay away from listing explicitly which ones, I want to list. I'm running on a BCL, I'm a library, targeting something, whatever it runs on, I want all of those.
Yeah, so you get, let's say you get the value all, and you end it with bit 32 set. It gives you a value that doesn't exist.
Yeah, which you can do today. Right.
What?
Which you can do today.
Well, you can do it, but you can do it by using numbers, not using values of the enum.
Well, I mean, it has a value, right? The value is called all.
The question is, should all be all ones, or it should be just all these values ORed?
Well, but then the problem is we would have a changing enumerator.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, so it's either going to be like this, or it's going to be like not on the enum at all, and there's another property on HP client that it says, I don't know, set all or something, which seems all a bit weird.
It's weird and not helpful.
Also, I mean, I don't know, like, decompression methods already is specific for networking, so it seems like adding that enumerator is.
Right.
So honestly, it's just shortcut for the not or revert of none, which is something that we would recommend people to do. It's just, let's be honest, like it's not absolutely.
Is it going to cause us to send a whole bunch of headers? Because it looks like for each one we're basically adding a new header for this that we're sending into with the request. So all of this basically has every single one of them all the time. So does that?
Well, I mean, the check will be the same. Like you will only. I mean, if you add a decompression, but then somebody
I
has to
understand
add
the check will be the same because of the way we're computing the all value. But I'm saying we're going to add a whole bunch of headers to. Do we want that to be sort of what people do? I don't know if it matters too much, but
Yeah, if people care about the size of the headers or something, eventually if it goes over 10 or something, which is not going to happen, honestly, then they can explicitly say, like, I care about only these because I know what my server does.
Right.
And if your library, you probably want to work against any server. You don't want to be picky. So.
I think it's actually one header that's just or separated, a pipe separated or semicolon separated or something. It's pretty compact.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the same header to me, right?
You have the API approved as number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not much sleep.
Yeah. What's the next one?
25040. Another networking one. So this is about TCP keep alive. And right now we have, I believe we have the option to kind of enable keep alive, but there are 3 things that actually can be set, and that's the keep alive time, interval, and retry count. So we are proposing that we're gonna add them to the socket option name, which we already have like IP specific things in there, so kind of protocol specific options on the sockets. So it's not a new thing. The only caveat is that these options are not all implemented or supported on all operating systems, especially the retry count. So we're gonna be doing no-op in certain cases. It's all an older version of Windows, like the pre-Windows 10.
So if they are no ops in some cases, would it make sense to add some suffix prefix implying that? Like, for example, add a hint, keep alive retry count hint.
That's a good suggestion. I wouldn't be against that.
I mean, there's sort of flags, right? How do you combine them? You don't?
I don't know. You see the example usage over there. It's basically, hey, I want to set this. Here's the value.
Socket option level TCP socket option name. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong here. Socket.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so the way, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so the way TCP and the networking stack handles this is there are all these different named options, some of which apply to specific quote levels, which could be like IP, TCP, socket. Some of them can apply to one, some of them can apply to multiple. And so the native APIs provide a function set sockopt, which you call, and you pass in the level, the option name, and the value you want to set it to.
So given that
our set socket option is a very thin wrapper around that.
Right. And given that this is effectively the pattern that we already have, I don't see a problem with that. And basically it also seems like there's an implication that that's the hint for the thing you're using, right? Already. Because I can call random stuff on my thing that may not make sense, right?
Yeah, you have to know what level to use with what name, with what value, and if you choose a bad combination as dictated by the OS, you get back an error, or it just ignores it.
And that one will work cross-platform, like this is, we already have that working across.
Yep, we basically translate the numbers to each operating system. These are actually Windows numbers, so we just pass it through on Windows and do something else on the next.
Reasons why these things end up getting defined by us here, because the numbers do differ across platforms, so we can't just provide like a generic set socket option and say, well, just cast whatever your value is to the enum and it'll just work, because the number is different across OSs.
Yep. But the idea is that this is not Windows specific. We just happen to pick the Windows number so our interpolator is easier. But like I can do exactly this code on Linux and it will work, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's just different numbers and of course different API. Under the
I don't have any concern. Anybody else?
So did we address the hint? So Stephen, you already said that we have a couple of things that we do no-op when we set it in certain cases. So
I have to go look and see. I would err on the side of keeping the name as close to the native platform name as possible, and so not adding additional words like hint, but I'm not sure it really matters. We can double check to make sure that there are in fact ones where we currently ignore them. I'm 90% sure there are, but I'm not 100% positive.
All right, and that's since Christopher is silent, I interpret this as reluctant approval.
No, totally approve. It was just a suggestion. And especially like if we already have some things I ignored, then the hint completely doesn't make sense. If we don't, then it's something to consider. Because like a silent does something else than you'd expect. That's kind of bad.
Yeah, I agree with Christoph. We should double check.
Can I comment on that? Double check. Eventually we're going to bring this as well for the HTTP client exposure. Not right now.
Carol, are there any places we're going to use these new values internally in our implementation in CoreFX, like SQL client or HTTP client or any such things?
SQL client is actually the one that would benefit in 2.1 timeframe. It was just too late. So that was one of the investigations on Linux that that Thomas did.
So as part of this work, part of the work is not only exposing it but using it.
That's not part of this work, but yeah, we will tell the SQL client team, like, guys, you can now go and use it.
Is you tracking that?
There are issues for that.
What else?
Okay.
Next one, 26975. So we have the cookie collection. We today exposed ICollection. Suggestion is to as well expose interface of ICollection of cookie. Should be hopefully fairly non-controversial.
Hold my beer.
All right, go for it.
What about iRead-on collection? Emo?
Yeah,
Let's go for it.
probably should.
You see?
I'm looking forward to the implicit interface implementations. Default implementations, so we don't have to do this bullshit.
But we cannot do it in standard, right?
The one where we can say runtime capability, blah blah blah, and everything.
Okay, let's talk about later on.
Yeah, we can do that. ICollection, but yeah, it will require reference to standard for sure. But that's already the given anyway.
What about iRead-only collection?
That is
a non-generic one.
What about
There is no non-generic one.
what about iRead-only list?
We don't have. I mean, then we should also implement iList if we don't here.
No, because ICollection is iList, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we're wrong.
That would be stupid.
No.
Yes.
ICollection. Well, what I meant is ICollection is indexable, isn't it?
That one might be true, but
iList is indexable.
No. Okay, yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, the ICollection of T is basically mutable. Correct? Not indexable.
yeah, there was some. Whoever worked on collections fucked it up between the generics and the non-generics when they differ in some substantial way. I'm forgetting which one it was.
28.0.
Forgetting which person who messed it up, yeah.
I know who was messing up. Shelby, I don't.
Are you talking about yourself?
No.
You're putting in the wrong place.
Sorry.
Open API.
Yeah.
That's fine. Just open the first one and then change the number.
Yeah.
28.046.
28.046.
Don't
ConcurrentDictionary.
worry, Anderson. At this point, you have plenty of things you can blame him for, too.
I'll blame Anders. He agreed to an idea from a crazy junior developer.
Well, the only ones are messed up, and I'm to blame for that. But the non-generic ones and generic ones, I did not fuck up because it was before my time.
Lucky you.
Lucky me. Also, process is probably the most messed up API, and I also didn't work on that.
You did or did not?
I did not.
Come on, process. Look how many years it survived. It was even added to net standard.
Is that your bar for success? Okay then.
The default thingy.
Didn't we talk
I
about?
thought we talked about this one, but I guess maybe not.
Oh, I did add comments. Here we go.
Oh,
Okay.
see?
Oh, that was the one we talked. Oh, that's why I talked to Jared about this, and then Jared said basically, no.
Yeah.
So.
Come on, he added one more sentence.
Well, he pinged me online and said every time you ask for each to change, the answer is always going to be no.
Yeah.
So
what we could do is the compiler could understand method called getEnumerator2 and prefer it over getEnumerator.
Channeling Jared? No. But we could.
So the only thing we could do is effectively like add a new method or property, right, that returns that thing. So that you can at least write a for loop without having to write a for each loop without having to write a while loop.
Yeah, let's call the method getEnumerator2.
The other option, which is I think what Jan was suggesting we could do, is simply wait until some future date when the JIT supports escape analysis and could stack allocate the enumerable.
Great. So in 20 years from now, we will have an implementation for that. That sounds reasonable.
Sure, his voice was heard.
Yeah, I think if you want to have something fast, then I think adding a new API is probably the best thing we can do. This one, I don't know, like to me it seems like an awful like of a hack to just have a type that you have to directly construct and then you cannot even enumerate it. I mean, quite frankly, we could make the type itself enumerable, but just adding the getEnumerator that returns this, that may be okay, right? Because then at least you can write a for each loop.
What? You would change an existing return type of an existing method?
No, I would just add a method on enumerator, getEnumerator that just returns this, because it's already a struct.
And how do you get an instance of enumerator to call a method on it?
Like this line is still right.
Oh, like you still have to manage.
I can at least for each it afterwards. I don't have to like do this.
Yeah. But like, so why would we not just add a method, getEnumerator2 maybe is an ugly name, but like getStructEnumerator.
Get the value enumerator? Yeah, that works.
Or value, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would work. Even?
We probably don't want to call it getValue enumerator on something that has a t value.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Oh god, naming is hard.
Let's rename tuples and we'll call them struct tuple and struct task.
getEnumerator2? It's not too bad, is it?
It's kind of bad.
You can just change the compiler to say if there's a higher number available, use that one. Sure, Jared is up for that.
An overload of getEnumerator.
What would the argument be?
Bool, fast.
Boolean, fast or not? No, allocating or not.
That's a good one. And then if you call it with true, we just allocate a dummy object.
Exactly, we just allocate and we still return the struct.
Oh god. Alright. Yeah, there's no good way to do it, I think. So, Steven, it's up to you. You filed it, so how strong do you feel? Otherwise, I'm inclined to wait.
That's fine. I mean, I filed it because I saw it show up in a profile, in a memory profile, but not, it wasn't like a hot path thing. I saw it in the trace and I was like, why is that? Oh, crap, right. So we could hold off on it until we find a real need and then do whatever the best option is at that time.
And because I also feel like if people have to change their code in drastic ways, it's very hard for people to get the benefit in, like across the board, right? Like I mean, what's appealing with Jan's option is that, you just don't change code, it just is not magically faster, but I'm always skeptical of these features because they tend to break stuff and then we can't actually do them, and yeah.
So is it really a breaking change to change the return type?
Yeah, because IL supports overloading based on return type.
It would break binaries too.
The signature you burn in is the return type plus the other one.
On the call set, yeah. Well,
And in C# you can't, so we can't add the other one with a different return type, because now it's conflicting, so you're screwed.
Yeah, I guess so. This is so unfortunate.
Well,
we can inherit from ConcurrentDictionary, hide this method and add a new one.
Sure. Like, let's go heavy-handed here, but yeah.
Or we add GetEnumerator to parent. Like, why is Jared opposed to something like this?
Like, you know how for each works in the compiler?
Yes.
It's crazy. So, like, every time you try to add something, it's basically like over-dilution requests where they're like, well, let's start with no and then let's see where it takes us. Because it's already freaking complicated. But yeah.
I think if we feel that this actually shows on profiles, we should just do this feature and add a method. I would just add some method. We invent a name.
Then have the compiler bind against that one.
No. You just...
Well, then you should
do it explicitly.
Yeah. It's just you don't have to... Basically, it's like, it's a similar pattern and it...
yeah, I guess that works.
We have this issue in several places.
So Jared was supportive of just making the compiler just make an enumerator for each of the right? So you could just say for each var x in get enumerator 2 and that would work. So that one I think seems like a reasonable fix.
You just close the tab. What does it mean? It's gonna bring up next time.
Fine.
Like either close it or approve it or next steps or something.
The options listed here
suck.
Or somewhat unfortunate.
You have short version.
More professional language.
That is they suck. One compromise would be to add a new method called get2 and change the compiler to support for each.
Check 5 minutes before he replies.
Well, he already told me that he's in favor of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who told you that?
Jared.
Oh. Then we have a plan.
So, well, just because he wants to do it doesn't mean he wants to do it now. And then super rush.
Well, we can add the API and then it just for each starts working.
Exactly.
Just like we added the long length to arrays. Nobody got the joke.
What was that again?
The joke was just like we added the long length to arrays.
It took a long time.
It's been taking a long time.
It has long in the name. What do you expect?
Yeah. wait for long flag.
Do we really want to say 2? Can we not give it a more descriptive?
Fast?
Yeah. Give fast enumerator.
Well, value
Get struct
enumerator.
enumerator.
Value enumerator would make sense, except for the value issue.
I mean that's the thing, right? Like, I guess you could say
I think.
Ooh.
No,
That's what you think it's going to be non-allocating.
If you don't like 2, then EX.
Oh yeah, EX is great. You better not have ever had 3.
EX2. Oh my.
Okay, 2 it is. If you can come up with a better name, that's what it is.
And besides, the enumerator enumerates values. They're not the values that you would expect. Right?
That's a good type should have. Or but
There would be no need to change compiler at all with this, right?
no, there would be because this code does not work today. You cannot for each new run 4.
Or okay.
Yeah. All right.
So so what are we gonna do? Are we gonna keep it IPI ready for review? Probably not.
I guess we should probably push it back to what needs work.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, I see. So the change that Jared is interested in doing is enumerating enumerators,
Yes.
not for each get enumerator 2.
Correct.
It really needs work, or is it just close until we, have a need for it? Because what are we supposed to do at this point?
Yeah.
This is, I think more or less like, I'm interested in Jared. Okay, let me actually tag this.
Assign it to Jared then.
Jared.
Ask him over here right now.
Huh?
You can ask Stephen right now.
Yeah, but then it's not documented for the rest of the world. Which could be me in a month from now when we're talking to Stephen about it. And by month I really mean tomorrow.
You can always.
Alright, so then I think we are done for today because there's nothing we can do in 3 minutes. Unless you have something for 3 minutes.
We can make Christian happy, but it's only gonna be 2 minutes.
What was this thing?
You know what? 14334. Because I have more question for Vas because it feels weird. I think protected.
So which one was that?
14334.
What does it mean? That's an old
Type
one.
info. Doesn't expose parameterless constructor.
Oh yeah. Why don't you just fix that?
There's nothing that I can do to fix it magically. It has to get put in all the platforms in order before we make it standard. You can put it in core right now, but that's not going to help the problems that people are wanting, which is the standard.
No, but I mean, if you want to change it, like, you better start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Core would be the right way to start it.
I have no issues with putting it in core.
So then API approved?
Yeah.
There we go, 2 minutes.
Okay, that one is the easy one. Okay. Let me just quickly prove that before Wes changes his mind.
There's no issues with me adding in core, but people are wanting it for standard implementation, and that's not going to help them right now.
So basically now you can just create type info out of the blue.
That's protected.
Yeah, you inherit from type info, and then
You could have always done that for type anyways.
But then you have to pass something to the constructor.
Type's got an empty protected constructor.
Oh, type, not type.
Yeah.
You used it. Okay.
It's the same thing. We're just trying to hide it before.
Alright, I'm gonna do it then.
People can create their own type. You won't be able to use it very well. It'll blow up in lots of places if you don't override 100 billion methods.
Alright,
perfect. That was easy.
we did quite a few. Refresh just for fun. 26, and we round what to what? 19, 18? Ah, 22. Ah, what the heck?
I already did refresh before. We did.
Oh.
Sorry, that was. All right.
Cool.
Then I would say thanks, guys, online, and yeah, see you later at some point.